Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Double Tap. I am Dan, and I'm here as always with Ian. How are you, mate?
How's everybody else doing?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Bad.
Good
Okay,
man.
so tonight's topic we are going to talk about business models in gaming and how they've evolved over the last couple of years and where we see them going in the future. So, would you like to start us off with an example of the kind of business models that we're seeing in gaming these days?
It's moved on, hasn't it? From where it used to be. I think now it's a lot more. The example now, I think Overwatch leads the way. But I think Rainbow Six Siege is not far behind as well
Mhm.
with the cosmetic microtransactions.
Yeah, it's very much moving away from the big season pass and into more smaller purchases over time, over an original base game price. Um, Very much like EA are doing away with the season pass with a couple of their games. Although obviously the big titles like Battlefield are still using their premium model as well as microtransactions, which is yeah a little bit greedy perhaps, um, but it seems to work for them and people pay the money. So I don't see that behaviour changing anytime soon while they can still get money from people for it.
Yeah, for me, it's. I like it the way it's going because it seems to be the conscious of not splitting the player base.
Absolutely, yeah. Like
Especially with a competitive shooter. But there's other games, other genres of game that hopefully we'll move away from it as well. But yeah, I think anything with a season pass stuff like that, that adds DLC and multiplayer, at least especially with multiplayer, as I say, it does split the player base. It's the have and have nots.
yeah, I mean
Um,
Rainbow Six have obviously gone the route of all the maps being available to everybody, so everyone can play the same maps. It's just the operators, the heroes, as it were, that you have to buy as part of your season pass, and even still you can still buy them in game just for massively inflated currency numbers of in-game currency rather than microtransaction stuff. Although the option is there for that as well in Rainbow Six's example.
yeah, I think we see it as well with GTA, don't we? All the DLC is free.
Yeah,
All the online, well, because there's no DLC for single player. But as the online world has evolved and they keep updating it, they don't charge for that. But they have the shark card system where if you want, you can top up your in-game currency with these shark cards, so you can buy the latest stuff a little easier if you're short of in-game cash.
yeah, and then
And
they make it quite difficult to do it any other way. If you can buy everything with in-game currency if you just grind it, but it's a harsh grind, especially in GTA. The missions don't pay a great deal, and it very much incentivizes buying those shark cards. But I mean, maybe that's okay if the sheer volume of content they've introduced in the online is incredible. It's ridiculous.
well, they've claimed, I mean, they're not the only ones, is that these small transactions like this basically sustain the game.
Yeah,
Because it's becoming increasingly more expensive. I mean, the money involved now to making what we would call a AAA budget, mass budget game is ridiculous.
yeah,
And to expect to sell in the volume to recoup that money, with probably disc is a little old fashioned now, but basically with just what's on the disc is, from what they say, sounds almost impossible.
yeah,
It would almost be not worth making the game because they would not make the money back if it was, as I say, the content was just disc only. There has to be some other system to keep you playing and keep you invested in it, that you'd spend a bit more money after release, after launch.
yeah,
And we see that with Titanfall 2, where they've said they are not going to charge for any new maps, but they're going to add cosmetic things to the game, which you can then use real money to buy.
yeah. And obviously the Overwatch model with the all new heroes and game modes and all the event content being free, and a pretty regular stream of content. It's been a bit faster than I expected it to. They've been quite good on getting stuff to us regularly. But then obviously you can buy loot boxes on top of that. And there's very much the RNG thing where you could spend an absolute fortune on loot boxes and get very little in the way of the cosmetics you get back. They might all be duplicates. But but it's there as an option if you want to continue to support the game and give yourself a chance to have some shiny new skins and dupes and crap voice lines.
Yeah, they do that by limiting like the exclusive skins to only a certain period of time,
Yeah,
rather than which is, I find irritating. But each to their own.
it'll be interesting to see how that model develops as we get into the second year of the game being out, and we start having repeats of the events. Because I'm assuming that the Christmas skins, for example, and the Halloween ones may resurface a year later. Alongside new ones, so it's going to widen the pool and make it more difficult for you to get the new ones, but also give players a chance to get the old ones again. Obviously, with reduced chance by the larger volume of skins in the boxes.
Yeah, I don't like that idea.
No, no,
Not in the slightest.
it's greedy and it's cynical.
I'd like to see two different types of loot crate, but I don't know how they work that. But it'd be like old and new.
And you can choose maybe between them when you're given the box or when you're buying them at least.
Yeah.
Now I'm shameful because I buy loot boxes. Not massively regularly, but during the events, if there's skins that I want, I will buy loot boxes, which to me is very much my way of supporting the game, which I enjoy a vast amount, and I got quite cheap, so I'm kind of, in my head, it's the justification for pushing Blizzard to keep producing content, and I'm okay to pay a small tax every time if I want those bloody skins, which I do, which is very much the Blizzard model with a lot of things, which is the have and have-nots, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
I've got this shiny Junkrat skin and you haven't. It means absolutely nothing. They're probably still the worst Junkrat in the world, but they've got the shiny skin and you haven't, and seeing other players with them makes you want them even more.
It's that it's the incentivization to invest more money in a game that you've already bought. But
Yeah,
what you see this though in free to play games though, like Dota, for example. There's a lot of skins and things, etc., 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 that you buy within game currency. I mean, that pays for the TI, doesn't it? The international.
so yeah,
I,
the TI has the compendium. So every year that the international, the TI, that's ATM machine problems. Yeah, the international, every year there's a compendium which you can buy, which is something like a journal that allows you to track the tournament and gives you exclusive access to a load of stupid skins and stuff that you'd never want, really. But that increases the prize pool of the international, and it's one of the biggest prize pools in esports year after year after year, because there's the incentive to buy this compendium for, I think it was £4 or something like that, and you get like the tournament standings and a handy little app format, and you get to watch all the games and the exclusive games and that kind of thing, which you can do anyway on Twitch and from within the Dota 2 client, but it gives you a nice kind of wrapped up way of doing things and a bit more interactivity with it, which I quite like as a business model. And Valve make an absolute killing out of it. Like, it's such a money spinner, it's unbelievable, and it's quite a nice way of doing it, because you feel like you're contributing to the careers of the esports players that you follow, in an indirect way, which is, it's a nice business model compared to, say, the CS:GO one with more loot boxes, where you have to buy keys for the boxes that you get, doubling the RNG. Meaning that they give you these things and they sit them on your inventory screen saying, hey, you've got this thing, but you can't unlock it unless you pay a little bit of money, which is a bit of an uncomfortable method. And there's lots of gambling and strange things going on there and illegal things going on there.
Payday 2 introduced that system as well.
Yes.
On top of DLC, on top of the base game. I'm just really pleased that they've moved. It's dead. The old online pass,
Yeah.
which we saw raise its ugly head during the 360 and the PS3, where you'd have to have a code that came with the game
To play online.
to play online.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's done. That's gone.
It was an outdated method, and it was basically just there to penalise people who can't afford to buy the game new anyway. And it was just,
If you rented it, bought it from a friend, or bought it second hand, and someone had redeemed the code, then you had to cough up. I just thought it was naughty.
it wasn't good. I don't see it being good for anybody, because it divides the player base, and reduces the number of people playing online instead of increasing it. You want to incentivise players to be online, then incentivise them to spend money from there. Let them enjoy the game, and then hook them into the other stuff. Don't shut them out of it for a paywall.
Yeah, disgusting business. I mean, they announced that as a feature. I remember at one E3, we're getting away with the online pass. Hey, good, because she never brought it out in the first place.
Yeah, it's worrying when they have to announce it as a feature. So where do we see the market going now? Because obviously we're very much moving away from the traditional season passes and more into the free content with the constant microtransactions, or in the case of Battlefield, a bit of both. Um, and I'm not even sure what the most recent COD's doing. I'm assuming it's very much the same with the season pass and then all of the additional stuff on top of that for cosmetics and that kind of thing, which I think a lot of games are still doing. But where do you see it going in future now?
I think we're just going to see less of AAA games.
Hmm.
I think the numbers will diminish. I think we'll still have them because people still want them. They're hardcore, for lack of a better word, which I hate. We'll still want these big budget games, but I just think we're just going to see a lot more and more. I hate this word as well. The indie developers,
Yeah,
because I just don't think it's sustainable at the rate it seems to go. I mean, technology is advancing so fast in the last, and they're struggling to keep up. I mean, we've got a new Xbox coming this year. They got this weird Pro, which I still don't know what it is, really. Obviously, we've got the Switch has been announced now as well, which is going back to cartridges as well.
yeah,
Um, I think we're going to see less of it, but I think what my gut instinct is we're going to see less AAA games, but more microtransactions within the AAA games that we see.
yeah,
I think the season pass thing will still be prevalent because it obviously works well for single player games as well. Because it's more of a case of you've bought the game, but the game's not finished when you finish what's on the disc. It's a case of, well, they want you to still be playing that game in 6 months' time,
yeah.
or at least come back to it.
And if they provide you with all the content from the get go, you're not going to be doing that. You're going to play through it once, maybe go back to it later on to play through it another time, but the replayability is not really there until they add all the DLC, which is the Dark Souls model at the moment. Like the second DLC for Dark Souls 3 has just been announced, and is dropping at the end of March, and then the Game of the Year edition, which includes all the DLC, is dropping at the end of April. So obviously, for someone say like yourself who's intending to pick it up on PC and hasn't got that yet, waiting for the Game of the Year edition will be a massive boon because you won't have to fork out for the game and then the season pass and all the rest of it. But it is still a very simple model where it's just the game, one piece DLC, second piece DLC, and you just pay a set charge for both, or you can pick and choose.
As long as the content's substantial enough to warrant the purchase. My mind right now jumps to Witcher 3.
Yes.
The DLC for that was insane. It was almost big enough to be a game by itself, and you wouldn't complain. Well, I certainly wouldn't have complained. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like for something I'm as fond of as The Witcher 3. It's always great to go back,
Yeah.
and dust it off and get up back on his horse.
And then crash the horse into a cliff.
Yeah, shouts at him because he doesn't. I mean, they complain about the Last Guardian. So yeah, well, play with Geralt's fucking horse.
Yeah, you ain't seen Clunky till you've seen Roach.
Yeah, Roach is fucking, especially in my game, he's a fucking man of his own. Yeah, it's. I haven't got. I haven't got a brilliant idea because I think what they do is what they're doing now is only what they can do.
Hmm.
We've got pre-order incentives. So I mean, I don't like the Resi one, the Resident Evil 7 one, which was £100 and you don't have the game.
No, it's ridiculous,
There's the
isn't it?
special editions and then the pre-order bonus stuff and things. Because obviously they're just trying to make as much money as possible. I just think it's too expensive. I really just get the feeling it's too expensive.
Hmm.
But it's so expensive. And what concerns me is we're going to lose some originality in there. We're just going to have to try it and test it.
Yeah, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a good example of this, and it fell short of its own ambitions due to budget restraints. I mean, $80 million they reckon it cost, and that wasn't enough to finish the game. There's
Yeah.
it's more or less half done, and none of the cutscenes are rendered, and they're reduced to audio files and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I still think it's stellar, but you imagine what could have happened had such budget restraints not existed. But as much as Konami are awful, 100% of the time, I can kind of understand where they came from there, because it's Kojima. If you leave him to it and just say have whatever money you want, he will completely bankrupt you. Because the people.
Did that ever make its money back?
Apparently, it broke even in the end.
Jesus Christ.
And only once they added all the microtransactions from other base coins and the DLCs for multiplayer stuff, which has a small but dedicated fan base. And it's quite good, actually. The Metal Gear Online is surprisingly good fun, aside from everybody being invisible and just terrible. But yeah, it's one of those ones where visionaries like that, who produce AAA games, will bleed your budget dry because their ambition will always outweigh the feasibility of the project. That's why I think indies are finding so much success at the moment, because they have to be so budget restricted, and they have to find ways to take that vision, that artistic license, and just shrink it to a reasonable budget and make it reasonable to produce that kind of content for people.
It's a shame that the money men generally are going to control this, but essentially that's the way the world works. It's the world we live in at the moment. I'd like to see more games go the Hitman route.
Okay.
Where it's episodic. I mean, I bought the first episode on PS4, and I've recently purchased the whole thing now on PC, and that thing is phenomenal. The amount of depth that's in each so-called episode, and it's very reasonably priced as well. Each episode wasn't expensive, but there was so much content within each one. It wasn't a case, well, it's not like a Telltale game where it's like £4 or £5 and you get an hour or two. There's 17, 20, 30 hours within each one. And there's six altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an interesting way to go. It won't work for every game type. Obviously, it wouldn't work for an online shooter, things like this. But a single player story-driven concept like that, where you break it into chapters and release it slowly over the year.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one because of how much flack they drew for announcing that business model and how many people disliked it. But overall, all the reviews are pretty positive. And
it's a stunning game.
And I really need to play that at some point, but it's, the backlog is the backlog, and it's only going to get worse with everything being good coming out at the moment. But yeah, I would like to see more of that with story-based games. Like, you can imagine something like the Elder Scrolls being broken down into quest paths and that kind of thing. It might not work for a game like that, but it might limit the vision of those kind of games to the point where they're a bit more feasible if they're trying to break it down into episodic content. Because a lot of long-time Elder Scrolls fans' problems with Skyrim was that it was a bit vacuous. Everything seemed to exist just to expand the scale, but not necessarily the scope of the content. Which is,
but if they produced every 2 or 3 months one massive open area, which is loaded with quests and items and other things for you to do, which the Elder Scrolls games are, but if they just brought it, and then you just build your map over time.
Yeah, that could work. That could work really well.
It could work. I mean, it might not. I mean, people might find it people with a lot of time who can invest it quick, early doors.
Yeah,
might find it very restrictive. Of why have I got to wait 2 more months so I can carry on playing my game?
Yeah.
But for those who don't have a lot of time to invest all the time, but those ones who take a day off work just because the game's been released, because they need that time to put some time into it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would struggle. That might be a way forwards, because it spreads out the cost of behind the scenes of making the game.
Yeah.
And it obviously it would be digital distribution as well. So, and only at the end, like they've done, going back to Hitman for a second, then only at the very end when it's all finished, do you bring out a disc?
Yeah.
And so, well, here's the whole thing now. If you didn't want to download it, or you were waiting to, for the complete package.
And that's the thing. There is the option to wait until the end and get a complete game the same way as you would have before. But they've got a method of sustaining the studio while they're developing the game. which helps, especially with these like AAA, as we've been saying, with the exorbitant costs of production now. It means you can continue paying your staff and that kind of thing, because we've seen obviously like Crytek and that studios like that who are more or less shutting down, not paying their staff for months at a time because they're just not producing anything that they can actually get out and sell. And studios like Valve being accused of not producing anything because they don't like to announce anything until they're absolutely finished with the game, and they're confident that they're going to be able to release it because the way that they develop games is so unique that they wouldn't necessarily produce everything that they announced, which would be just disappointing to everybody. You'd have the No Man's Sky issue where, again, the ambition just completely exceeded what they were capable of, and I think marketing and that pushed that game so far beyond what it was capable of doing. I mean, they were a small indie studio, and the idea that anyone was expecting Star Citizen like levels of enormity was insane. And obviously, bringing up Star Citizen is the other method, which is crowdfunding. Star Citizen being the most prolific and successful example. I don't know how much money they've got now, but it's a lot. They have pulled in a significant amount of money, and they're managing to produce the game. And there are a lot of naysayers and people who say that it'll never come out, but I unashamedly have backed it. Not a massive amount of money. There's people who've donated thousands of dollars to this game, tens of thousands in some cases. But yet they're still going, and they're producing content pretty regularly now, and it's huge. The scale of it's incredible, but it's so far seems to be meeting that scale, and I wonder if crowdfunding would work for any other games, or is it very much just the unique draw of Star Citizen that allows it to do that allows them to pull in so much money. Because obviously when they started funding, there wasn't games like Elite Dangerous and the like of that are a very similar kind of model, although much smaller in scope. So they didn't have a great deal of competition, so people yearned for that kind of game to exist, that like freelancer style of game again. And I don't know whether it's just because of that and that nostalgia factor that allowed them to draw so much money in. But I don't know whether it would work for anybody else. What do you reckon?
I think it's the crowdfunding works if you know the people involved, or you know the project. For example, Shenmue, or you've got turn legend on Twitter, isn't it? Double Fine.
Yeah.
Like, you know who they are, you trust them, because there's a lot, from what I've seen of, which is not a lot, I must admit, there's some really ropey shit on Kickstarter and the other sites similar. But but then you've got something like Friday the 13th, which is a beloved. I mean, fans of that game, or fans of that film, then franchise of movies, I can't wait for the game itself.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have a draw. There has to be something about you or the project itself. So either you've had to have a good reputation, or you've got a good license, or maybe even both, for that to work. I wouldn't say I was concerned overall, because there's far too much money in it. I mean, 50 million PlayStation 4s have been sold now, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's a hell of a lot, and that doesn't account for PC. Well, I won't say Nintendo then, but I paused. And obviously Microsoft as well with the Xbox. So there's a huge player base of hardcores and neutral and casuals and things. There's always going to be people who want the FIFAs and the Call of Duties.
Yeah.
But for the most of us who play games regular and play different type of games, I am a little concerned, because we are moving away rather quickly from what we've become accustomed to.
Yeah.
I don't see massive risks taken, because the games are, I keep saying this, the games are so expensive to make on this scale that we'd like to see. Most first games in a franchise have been either financially successful but overall disappointing. Poor Ubisoft spring to mind at the moment with the Watch Dogs and the original Assassin's Creed. It didn't live up to the hype, but everyone bought into it thinking it's what was going to be something.
Yeah,
And then the sequels then suffer because of the reputation of the first iteration of the. I don't. There's no golden rules. There's no set instructions like we'll do this and it will be a success. Do this and it will be a success. Blizzard have a certain way they do it with the skins aspect to it, the microtransactions that are separate from a DLC.
yeah,
It doesn't add anything to the game. Only visuals, only cosmetic stuff,
yeah,
and that works for them because they've got some of the most talented artists in the world. And probably one of some of the most addictive games you'll probably find. We've spoke at length over how much we enjoy Blizzard games,
yeah.
but they're not shy of adding DLC in. And for instance, we've just got into StarCraft a little bit now as well.
Okay.
Um, I've lost my train of thought there, matey.
You've got Legacy of the Void and Heart of the Swarm, the huge expansions, and they are huge expansions. They are proper old school expansions to the game. They are not just a map pack. They are enormous expanded new campaigns, new characters, new content, new everything, which lives up to what I would call an expansion pack from kind of your early days of PC gaming and that kind of thing. Not Oblivion expansion pack, which resulted in horse armor, like that kind of thing. And obviously the same with Diablo 3, which was struggling. It's probably if anything, the least well received of Blizzard's games for a very long time. And it struggled with sales and with reviews and with everything. And then Reaper of Souls comes along and totally refreshes the game from the ground up and addressed so many of the concerns people have. There's still people who are set in their ways and had decided they didn't like it and they're going to carry on playing Diablo 2 probably. But it's there, and it's such a monumental effort for what is essentially a game that's struggling financially. And I wonder if it's anything to do with the massive funding brought about by the Activision acquisition, which you kind of worry about it when you hear that, because Activision are known for Call of Duty, so you think, oh god, here we go. What are they going to do to the business model? But it seems very much that in the years since that the Blizzard have been entirely autonomous in the way they present their games, and they've just got the publisher clout and the funding from Activision, which is, I don't think anyone saw that one coming. Maybe Blizzard themselves, I would imagine, but not us. And that's positive.
It's like when Amazon took over Twitch.
Mm.
Everyone at Twitch like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? And as you say, they've been quite sad. Well, until recently, but silent in the background, and what they've brought in recently, it only seems to be good,
Yeah.
especially for the broadcasters, who are looking to have sub buttons and things on Twitch.
Yeah, and stuff like Twitch Prime, which is, as far as I can see, a positive. I was already on the edge of picking up Amazon Prime, and that was it. That was enough to tip me over the edge, because the £8 a month or whatever it is cost is suddenly justified because you've got Amazon Prime Video, which isn't great, but it's there. It's an alternative to Netflix, and they get some films that Netflix don't get. Obviously, there's the Grand Tour and that kind of thing. And then there's Amazon Prime itself, which is incredible and boggles the mind, the kind of logistics they can pull off with that. I did all my Christmas shopping on the 23rd of December, and it was all with me Christmas Eve morning, ready to be wrapped and good to go. And I didn't even have to worry about it. I think I ordered everything at about 4 o'clock on the night, and everything was still there in the morning for me. Something like 12, 15 hours later, which is ridiculous. And then obviously, Twitch Prime, which is just more of the same incentives that you'd have picked up Twitch Turbo, but with better stuff. It's pretty good, and it's rare that big acquisitions like that go quite so well. I'm struggling to think of any in recent memory because they don't seem to happen that often anymore. Perhaps Microsoft acquiring Rare and then doing nothing with them for absolutely
Microsoft, it's not good. Microsoft, are they?
No, they buy studios then ruin them mostly. Although I have heard from a friend of mine who shall remain unnamed, who is in the technical test of Sea of Thieves over the weekend, that it's excellent. That it's an absolute bucket of fun. So I'm curious to see how that pans out, because it does look like a good laugh. But we'll see. So yeah, to wrap up then, what's your favourite and your least favourite business model of the ones we've discussed tonight, and some of the others that have existed over the years, and the and going back some as well into gaming history a little bit, with some of the weirder ones like subscription MMOs and that kind of thing, which we haven't discussed so much, but still kind of exist. There's Black Desert Online, and obviously WoW is still going strong somehow, actually beating its own player peak with the most recent expansion, which just absolutely blows my mind that many people, nearly 10 million people, went back to it for Legion. And all credit to Blizzard again. But yeah, what are you?
Yeah, MMO's never a game style I've ever found myself drawn to. Although on paper, I would. I just can't seem to get into one. I've tried a few now, and I just can't seem to get past it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't seem to grab me. I don't know why. I think the idea for me to subscribe to play a game just doesn't. If someone who's been gaming for over 20, 30 years now, it's like, it doesn't seem right there. I like to hand over my cash and then you give me my product, and I think, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Where my games are concerned, I think my to go back to your question though, my favourite ones, Hitman's unique because it's such a massive franchise anyway. But I love what they did with that.
Yeah.
I love the way they've kept it fresh constantly. I mean, obviously, I was watching it from the sidelines because there was just too many other games for me to play, and I'm far too greedy when it comes to my gaming. So I thought I always will go to that. I always will pick the whole thing up, which I, as you know, have. But to have like weekly assassinations that you're going to get one chance at was just genius. Absolute genius. I thought, what a clever way. Because again, it goes back to the idea with, from what I understand, the developers just want you to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
Whatever they can do to keep you playing, and then they can, if you can keep, and spend just a little. That's what they want to do, and then Hitman just seemed to nail that for me. So that's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
And the other one which I'm partial to, which I don't invest in, is when it's just purely only cosmetic. Titanfall 2 and Overwatch of recent times spring to mind as the two, where it literally just is cases, well, if you want to, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. And you're not alienated from the game.
Yeah.
And you don't feel, well, I certainly don't feel put out by not buying a loot box or not having a certain skin for me Titan, because I can't see the bloody thing anyway. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I quite like when I do get one in a loot box from leveling up. I do quite like it, but I'm not that bothered to spend more money on it. But I'm glad other people do, because it means I get all the content for nothing.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like it because it's choice rather than you have to buy this, otherwise you can't play.
Yeah.
Or the player base is now so small because we've all moved on. Because that happened with me with Battlefield 4. Not the biggest Battlefield fan, and people were playing on all the expansion pass and the season pass and all the DLCs, and there's me with the vanilla game going, I'm all on my own now.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't literally on my own. There's lots of other people playing, but my friends had all moved on and they were playing that. So that I don't like that. That leaves a bitter taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
And to add to that as well, the shortcut kit stuff can fuck right off.
Yeah, absolutely 100% with you there. I can't even understand the mindset behind buying them. Like, I get buying season passes. I absolutely get buying loot boxes. I do it myself. I get buying the shark cards in GTA. I do not understand buying kit shortcuts in Battlefield. Surely the progression system and unlocking stuff is part of the reason you play the game. And why would you rob yourself of that? It's like using a cheat for invincibility and then playing through the game. And it's so unfulfilling when you get to the end and you're like, I've achieved nothing here. This is completely, utterly pointless.
It leaves me feeling hollow.
Yeah.
Because that's why we have a leveling up system now in these games. We have an XP system where we unlock certain things. And it's always that little milestone. And again, these are put in because the developers want you to keep playing. I mean, it's even in Titanfall 2. And there's not a lot in that, really, compared to others. But it's even, there's a progression system in there to unlock new guns, even skins, different aesthetics. Keep you playing, keep you wanting to keep... You turn on your console or you boot up your PC, that's the game you want to play first.
And then
When you're at work or you're out with friends and family, you think, oh yeah, I could go. I'm going to play that when I go home. That's the one. It's always in your disk drive. Or it's always the first thing you boot up, and you're playing that for a bit. We had seen the only news today or the other day that GTA 5 is again top of the sales charts. I think that's ridiculous because how old that game is now and all the great stuff that's come out, especially the end of the last year.
yeah,
And GTA is still sitting and comes out and still considered the top.
and it was the best-selling game of all time when it released. You know, that's what blows my mind, because how many people are there left that haven't played GTA 5 now? You know, it's like I've bought it twice, and I've been at the midnight launch of it twice because I'm a GTA fanboy, and I'm not going to apologise for that. Although the midnight launch of the Xbox 360 one at Tesco's was horrible. I've never smelt so much stale cider in my life. But some of it was on me, to be honest.
That's
But
just Tesco.
yeah, but then staying up until the PC version, and I remember seeing those trailers for it of the Xbox One, the PS4, and the PC version, and thinking, Jesus Christ, like this was a pretty game anyway, but my God. And then the excitement of buying it a second time and spending full price a second time to sit until midnight and wait for the game to unlock and then play through that whole North Yankton section again and just have my mind absolutely blown by how insanely pretty that game is, and it still is now. But yeah, like, it was the best-selling game of all time, and now it continues to top sales charts. Like, how is that a thing? How have Rockstar managed that? It's incredible, and I imagine a lot of that is from the fact that they don't put games out very often, and when they do, they're usually of extremely high caliber. They don't muck about a great deal. I think we've said it before on this podcast that they made one of the best table tennis games of all time inexplicably. You know, it's just incredible.
They had no right to do that.
No, it's not fair.
No right to do that at all.
And the stunt racing, the new silly racing modes in GTA are some of the best wacky racers style game I've played in years. Like it's on par with like the original Destruction Derbies on the PS1 and that kind of tier of game. It's incredible. It's just ridiculous. And if the shark cards are what supports that, then by all means go ahead, because that's incredible.
I think that's the future, buddy. It's a mix of all these things. It's not one thing. We're not going to have a particular game such that we're doing this.
It'll be a bit of everything.
There'll be a little bit stuff, a little bit of these little things in. But there's still room for DLC and season pass in single player stories, single player games, I should say, rather than stories. Single player games will always have that. Because again, they just want you to come back. They want you to keep playing that game, or at least return to it. What they don't want you to do is buy it, play it, sell it.
Yeah.
Because the moment you sell it, they make no more money on it.
Yeah.
So they want you to buy it, they want you to keep it, and they want you to spend a bit more money on it at some other point.
Yeah.
Or at least keep playing it, so forces somebody else who wants it to go and buy it from them.
Yeah, at least stay invested.
I'd like to see digital distribution cheaper, particularly console, not necessarily PC, where I find myself playing a lot more lately. But I'd like to see that cheaper. I can understand why it's not. I can understand it because obviously they got to keep par with the retailers, otherwise the retailers just won't bother.
Yeah.
And all that other stuff that goes in with all that, which is far too deep to go into now. I'd like to see it cheaper. I'd like to see it more. Do you remember a couple of years ago, the E3, when Microsoft said this is what the Xbox One's going to do, and everyone seemed to lose their minds?
Was it the initial one where it was online only all the time? And
yeah, you had to put your disc in, and you could, and it was like all this stuff, and you couldn't share your disc, and it's like, oh, what the fucking hell's this? We don't want this. This is not what we, as a gaming community, seems to be an uproar, as is social media and all forums bollocks, as everyone's a Superman when they're not in the same room.
Yeah.
But more as it's progressed, you can see more and more that Microsoft they've got a point though. They might not be right with everything, and what they would try to force it down your throat rather than just gently let you just adopt it naturally, which is I think what's happened now. we're just adopting this digital medium thing a lot easier than we were a couple of years ago. It's like, no, you've got to, or you can't play it.
Yeah.
We're adopting this digitally, and they can do so much with that because it's digital.
It's the PC is the shining example of that. You look at Steam, you look at the Steam sales, you look at the kind of deals you can get. You never have to pay full price for a game. The
But
RRP is
it's
meaningless.
stuff like Steam Workshop that it's stuff
Yeah,
day one patches. Oh, we're just going to patch this in. Seasonal stuff like with Overwatch. I keep mentioning Overwatch like a mad craze fanboy, but seasonal stuff that's added. The Hitman game again, just because it's relevant in my mind at the moment. They added a mission that was like it was Home Alone,
oh wow, okay, okay, I need to
completely
play that.
free, but it was Home Alone, and yeah, the two robbers that you had to kill, the two robbers from Home Alone,
Nice, I like that.
and it's like that stuff's brilliant, and it keeps you playing. And you just, yeah, have that, play that.
Yeah,
And again, you buy it, you don't sell it, you keep it because they keep adding content to it. And if they can do it without charging for that content, but still get money off you and still keep tapping you on the shoulder and you keep dipping into your pocket for whatever reason, I think that's the ticket because they are going to massively struggle because we've seen that some sales reports before Christmas, how well Battlefield 1 did. Oh, everyone's made, but how poorly in respect Call of Duty and Titanfall 2 did in contrast. It was like, well, it was like the first person shooter fan has chosen their game.
it was a very saturated market at that point anyway, and it was very much the people only want to invest time in one, because these games you have to invest so much time if you want to keep up with the player base. We've tried doing kind of all of them except COD, and it's not it works. Like we still play Battlefield off the weekend, but we haven't played Titanfall in a little bit. Probably will do as the more content drops in and that kind of thing, and go back to it because it's a great game. It really is, especially the single player. Like if you haven't picked up the single player alone,
Both of it's brilliant, mate. To be
yeah,
fair, both
absolutely.
of it wonderful.
Um, but it's time investment. We've kind of just gravitated back towards Overwatch again, and that's where the time investment is at the moment. That might change in the near future, but with the seasonal stuff
That was
dropping,
because they went, here you go, look at all this Christmas shit. He's like,
mhm.
ooh,
And then we've got
ooh, I need to do the arcade stuff because they give me extra loot boxes if I win 3 matches in arcade. So I need to do that because I want a Santa skin and I want this skin.
yeah,
Again, it's Blizzard winning, not winning that war, but it's winning the idea of, well, you've bought it, let's keep you playing.
yeah. And I think HOTS is a very good example of that. Heroes of the Storm for people who don't play it and don't know, because there's daily and weekly challenges that earn you gold, which is an in-game currency which you can use to buy heroes. I mean, it's a free-to-play game, and I think I've put maybe 1,000 hours into it by this point. It was basically all we played for a year, 18 months. Like a ridiculous length of time. We put a substantial volume of hours into that, and I've bought nearly all the heroes with gold. There's a couple I've bought with money. I think I bought Zarya when she was introduced, because it's Zarya. But the rest I've bought with gold, and I'm approaching the point where I can buy any of the new heroes as they come out for the full 15,000 gold they ask for them, just by popping on and doing the dailies. And it's an incentive I really like because, as well as giving you that incentive to jump on every day and play the game, you've got the fact that it shifts up what you're doing, especially on HOTS, because it forces you to play different heroes and different classes of hero that you wouldn't necessarily get involved in otherwise. I think the Division's got a lot of daily and weekly content as well. That's quite good, and the rewards have got very good in the recent months since the game was overhauled. It's got really reasonable and really worthwhile to actually do those things. Which is nice, and those things are probably the best example of ways to keep you playing. And I wish Overwatch had daily objectives for gold. I'd really like that.
Oh,
Play
good
so
God.
many matches
I'm
as
glad it
a
hasn't,
hero.
Jesus Christ, because there's more games to play. I can't put more time in Overwatch. It's not funny.
What didn't help anything was that we got caught up in comp. In
Yeah,
the December madness with the new skins, it was, oh, let's play a bit of comp, maybe that'll be okay, and then had a bit of a revelation about how good comp is.
comp is the only game mode to play.
Yeah, yeah. Although capture the flag tomorrow, supposedly. So yeah, we might have to give that a run as well. But yeah, I think that's more or less all I have to say on the topic. I don't know if there's any other points you'd like to make before we call it a night.
No, I don't think so, man. it's just to sum up, just to generalize. It's just give me reasons to keep playing your game.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
FIFA and Pro Evo put in summer tournaments, I don't mean Euro Championships and World Cup shit. But if they put in, not necessarily online, but just like unique tournaments in there every now and again to play, because they have I mean, FIFA has the Ultimate Team mode,
Yeah.
which makes an absolute fortune.
Oh yes.
Um, yeah, I just go back to the old thing. There's no rules to this. There's no A, B, and C, and you make money.
Mhm.
I think there's different methods to approach with each type of game and the player base that you're appealing to. But I do generally worry. Not, it doesn't keep me up at night, but you do worry about the long-term future of what we would call AAA.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more things like EA's Access, which you get on Xbox One, or Origin Access if you're on PC, where it's almost like a rental service almost that you can have for as long as you feel necessary. I think that's absolutely tremendous value. And you can just dip into games that you might have thought of trying before, or it's just you're getting early access to Andromeda,
Mhm.
Mass Effect Andromeda. I think I think that's genius,
It's a
and it
really
shows up the absolute flaw in PlayStation now,
yeah.
because that's utter garbage in comparison and well over the price of
Yeah.
what it should be.
I'll give
And
you.
are you listening, Nintendo?
Yeah,
Give me a fucking rental service for the Switch and I'll buy it.
yeah. Stop
There
with
you
this
go.
bullshit.
Because that what you're doing at the moment is wrong.
Yeah. Um.
I'm sure you'll come good, but it's wrong right now. But if you give me a rental service that isn't a 30-year-old SNES game, fuck off. Give
Yeah.
me the whole catalog that I can choose and pick and choose from. Just Nintendo release games.
I'd pay more than Origin Access to have that catalog, especially if they added like the GameCube and the
The
N64 to
whole
it.
thing, man. The whole
That would.
thing. Wii U, all the way back to the NES.
Oh yeah.
Game Boy stuff as well on a Switch that you could just say, right, here's my 10, £20 a month.
Yep.
And I've got two-player access all the time because this is where you've designed the fucking console. I know this is completely off topic, by the way. But if you give me, I would give you about £10 to £20 a month for that, and I wouldn't sneeze. I wouldn't lose. I'd be happy as hell.
Yeah, like let me take Super Smash Bros. Melee to work for £20 a month, and I will
I'll play it on the bus, and when I get to work, I can play with somebody else when I get there. On them
exactly.
little fiddly fucking things that look like they're made for children.
That's I don't care. I
Maybe I've
genuinely
just
don't.
got ape hands, but it just looks like they're made for children. But I don't give a shit because I'm playing Mario Kart now, and everyone's got their own favorite version of Mario Kart, so it doesn't matter because I've got all of them.
Yeah,
Because Nintendo are boss. I know one makes games like these fuckers, and I've got all these games to choose from. But yeah, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see like that kind of service where you can just subscribe to these publishers that you have a particular affinity with, and go, yes,
yeah,
I'd like these games, because I think it's a great way for them to make money on old stuff that probably wouldn't sell now or would sell, but for buttons.
yeah, yeah.
All
That
this
would work.
Ubisoft with all the Assassin's Creed, for example, and there's a lot more. There's always Splinter Cell and many more,
Hmm.
but all of Ubisoft stuff. Here you go, Capcom. Here you go. There's all the old Street Fighters and all the Resident Evil. I mean, it'll get very expensive if you put them all together.
Hmm.
I mean, if you wanted them all, my good God, that would be extremely pricey. But if you could pick and choose,
But
I
if
mean,
you
I'd
were
get
buying them,
one for a month, drop one, and pick one up the month after.
I mean, if you were buying the new games from every one of those publishers anyway, it'd probably come to the same kind of money. That's the thing. Especially like with Nintendo, charge £20 a month. That library is so vast and of such high quality across the board. You can get away with that, and I think I would pay that. It becomes worth it at that point. The current model where you get one shit game for a month for your money, which I think is about like £10 or something, and you have to pay that to play online as well. Which is a model
And
I
you get
thought was
you get it
dying.
for 30 days. It is internet enhanced, but it's a fucking SNES game. Now,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
still
my
worth it.
SNES. I've bought three or four of those things as the years have gone on, even since when I feel like a retro itch to scratch.
Hmm.
I absolutely adore this SNES. I don't, wonderful, but that's taking the piss. But again, that's completely off topic. That's what I'd like to see them do. I'd like the publishers to get to, and do this rental service like similar to EA Access, where you could drop 1 month, pick one up the month after. So I could have an Ubisoft month, drop that next month, or I'll have a Capcom month next month.
Yeah.
And I could go in, and then if like Resident Evil 7's just come out, well, I'll definitely have a Capcom month this month because I get a couple of hours early access to Resident Evil. And then if you hook me on it, because by all accounts it's amazing, well, you're going to get a purchase out of me because I'm going to go and buy it.
Yeah.
And you're giving me discounts through yours to go through your store, like they do with Origin Access, to give me discounts to go through their store. Again, it doesn't work out cheaper though,
Not
because there's
really.
so many other ways to get keys on a PC.
But you've got the option then, and you're kind of ingrained to think, I've got this discount, I should use it.
It will work for others. I'm a more savvy shopper than that. I'll take more time to shop around, but it will work for some. And then hopefully that would hopefully keep them invested enough to take more of a free approach to producing stuff, so it doesn't just become a year of Call of Duty, Battlefield, Assassin's Creed, FIFA every fucking year, because that's all it sells, and that they can guarantee that sells, and that's it, because that's the worry that that's what the world will end up with.
Yeah.
We'll have crowdfunding stuff that takes so fucking long to come out. By the time it comes out, it will only end up to disappoint.
Yeah.
There are a few exceptions, I will grant you, but that just seems to be my opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just become the tried and tested. Oh, we'll have a break this year. You won't get an Assassin's Creed this year. Great. So we'll bring out the XO collection. I thought we were having a fucking break. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Just, I'd like them to do that. I'd like to, because they've got there's obviously incredibly talented people working for all these studios. And it'd be a shame just to keep putting them in a box and saying, oh, yeah, just do another FIFA. Let's do something else as well as FIFA. There's room for both, and that's what keeps me worried. That's the concern for me, that we won't see many more. In the end, it will become quite stale, and we'll be left with 5-hour indie games, which will break my heart because I like my AAA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I like my big budget action bullshit. I'm as shallow as a puddle, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but Gears 4's so good.
It's as shallow as a puddle, and I don't give a shit.
It was so much fun. It's such
fun
a
as
good game.
fuck. Yeah, absolutely fun as fuck. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I can't add a great deal to that really.
I rambled everywhere there, mate. I don't know what my point was myself.
Well, you've made one, so I'm going to agree with it. Yeah, I think that is the way for things to go, and I would love to see those kind of subscription services, because Origin Access is a ridiculous value proposition, and being able to do that all over the place, like Humble Monthly, it's had some misses, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good value for money across the board, and I can't even remember what I bought into for the newest one, and I probably should cancel the subscription again, but
XCOM 2.
that's the one. Yeah,
I found with Humble Monthly, the £10 it's cost me a month. I've had £10 of value out of the 6 or 7 games that I've got each month.
Yeah,
minimum. The first one I subscribed to was Rocket League. And funny enough, I don't know why I know this now, but I've put 47 hours into Rocket League since I got that, and it was a Humble bundle. So I thought that is stupid value for money.
it's more than £1.
Anything else from that month was a bonus. And I generally haven't done that every month, but most months there's definitely been there's obviously a highlight in there.
Yeah,
so I've had at least £10 worth. If you do £1 an hour,
yeah,
definitely
easily. Rocket Month pays for 5 months of its own accord.
If you do £1 an hour as value for money, if you have that system in your head, £1 an hour is good value, and yeah, it's good value.
Yep, I've got 44 hours out of it, and I've got like 3 hours out of Slime Rancher, which, you know,
something you wouldn't have bought, isn't it?
Not at all, but it's quite good fun. Yeah, I'd like to see more of those. But yeah, I think that's about all I can say on the topic, really, and I think that that brings us to a nice closer.
Cool beans, Summer. Cool beans.
But, yeah. So yeah, a good night from us. This will be available on everywhere shortly. If you're watching live, I don't think anybody is other than you and me, but we can ignore that.
We didn't tell anyone we were doing it, mate. We're so rusty.
It's yeah, I didn't do that, but yeah, this will be available everywhere soon. So yeah, we will catch you probably in a fortnight's time for anybody who ends up watching or listening to this. So yeah, it's a good night from me.
And a good night from him. I stole her two Ronnie's joke, and I don't care.
Oh dear. Right. On that on that note, I'm gonna just press the stop streaming now. Okay. So yeah. Bye everybody.